On DC Music Rocks, we're shining a spotlight on the great songs, artists, and incredible people behind the DC region's local music scene. And Keith originally hails from the San Francisco Bay Area, where he interned with local concert promoters on marketing and ticketing. And after graduation, Keith accepted a job as a marketing assistant for AEG Live in Nashville. He spent the last 2.5 years in Washington, D.C., working as the marketing manager for the Hamilton Live and their new venue, the Soundry, where he handled marketing, publicity, and promotions for the venue and its shows. And just last week or two, he just accepted a new position out at Wolf Trap now. So that's out in the Virginia suburbs, and basically this guy's just been around. So I first came across Keith because his name has come up multiple times in the world of local music. And so I was able to connect with him, and I've been curious to get to know you for so long, so I'm excited that you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for being here, man. Absolutely. Now, so first, tell him again now, what's how did you end up in D.C.? Let's start there with we talked about Nashville, and you kind of been all over the country. When did you arrive in D.C.?
So I moved to D.C. When I took the job, or shortly after I took the job at the Hamilton, which was in January of 2016.
Okay.
Prior to that, so I went to college in Nashville, and I stuck around there for a few years afterwards. I met my girlfriend while I was living in Nashville, and she was living in D.C., so sort of after a year of doing things long distance, I was sort of feeling a career, not a career change, but a job change.
Sure.
And I also was sort of wanting to see if this relationship would work, which
it
had.
Yeah.
And so I ended up looking for opportunities, and it just so happened, I think like most stories in the music business, there's a lot of luck involved where my boss at my job in Nashville happened to know one of my coworkers, the talent buyer at the Hamilton. So when he saw that on my resume, that sort of was like a little indicator for him, and he reached out to me, and it worked out. That was how I ended up in D.C.
And that was back in 2016, you said?
Yeah, that's
right. Okay. So relatively new to D.C. This is kind of cool.
Yeah, a little bit.
And were you, and you're not from here either, so 2016 would have been your first time actually coming to the city? Or were you here younger and then you came back?
Well, I had visited, when I was dating long distance for a year. I did a fair amount of visited, but it was my first time living here. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
So it was definitely starting from scratch and trying to. I felt like I'd built some pretty deep connections and gotten pretty well into the scene in Nashville, and it was sort of starting from scratch with DC, which has been, it's a challenge, but it's also fun whenever you start something new and you're like, trying to get plugged in.
Absolutely. There's so much involved in that. And so now, what part of the region are you? What part of the DC region are you now? Where do you?
Yeah,
living wise.
I live in the city. I live right near Meridian Hill Park, so sort of close to the middle of the city.
Up in the northwest. And were you always there? That's kind of where you settled and been there since 2016, or have you kind of bounced around a little bit?
Yeah, I've within that area. I lived in Shaw for the first year that I was here. But all sort of in that northwest area.
Nice. Yeah. Oh man, Northwest DC, I love it. So now, tell us about your earliest memory with music.
Oh man, I remember as a child, most of my dad's side of the family is musical. My dad plays guitar and banjo. One of my uncles plays guitar, another plays bass. So around like holidays, Christmas, and graduations or things like that, and the whole family would get together. There'd inevitably be some sort of a hootenanny with them playing like old folk songs or bluegrass songs. And
which, if you didn't know, the word hootenanny is almost exclusively used about folk or bluegrass music.
Yeah.
That is a hootenanny. I love that.
So yeah, that's what I decided that I wanted to learn to play the guitar when I was in 3rd grade or so.
Okay.
Sort of because of that, I wanted to be able to join in on that a little bit. I thought it was I thought it was so cool and so much fun. So I've always loved listening to music, and I started playing music and then got into the music business, but my whole life's been music.
Seriously. And do you still, you work in music now. Do you still play music sometimes too? Or?
Oh yeah, just for fun. I had a band when I was in Nashville, so I practiced and played out a little more regularly. But these days, maybe if I'm really feeling like I want to do something, I'll go to an open mic around town. But for the most part, it's just sort of me noodling around on the guitar at home. It's mostly for me.
Absolutely, I got it. And what about now? Talk about you on the personal side.
Yeah.
What do you do outside of music and the music business?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question because it is a business that can sort of bleed into your personal life a little bit. It's hard to set boundaries because when you're passionate about something, you want to commit all of your time to it. But it's important, and it ultimately, I think, makes you better when you're able to step away for a little bit. I love playing golf, so I try to either get out to the driving range or play, once a week. I have a few friends in town, and I generally I'm a big foodie, so I like going out for either dinner or for drinks or stuff like that, going out on the town, and then also just sort of hanging out at home. I love, just turning on a movie or reading at home as well. Just finding things that I can do to sort of distract myself or decompress a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And now you've mentioned, so there's multiple venues we've talked about now. And for those folks, I definitely want, while you're here, talk about the Soundry. I think most people are familiar with the Hamilton. It's right down by Metro Center. It's a basement venue. If you haven't ever been to the basement, it's the Hamilton Live is what they call it. And it's this massive, if you've never been down there, the first time you walk in, you can't help but go, whoa, like how did I not know this was here? So that's magical. And now those same folks have now opened the Soundry. So describe the Soundry to people who haven't been there.
Yeah, so the Soundry, I guess a little bit of backstory, but the people that own the Hamilton and also own the Soundry, it's Clyde's Restaurant Group. So
Sure.
if you've been into Clyde's restaurants in the area. So the Soundry is a new music venue that opened in downtown Columbia, Maryland, that is adjacent to the Clydes of Columbia there.
Oh, wonderful.
So it has its own separate entrance. It's sort of its own thing, but they are connected as well by a hallway between the two. It's a little bit smaller than the Hamilton in terms of capacity, but it's going to be very similar vibe in terms of the booking. Because it's smaller and because it's in less of a major city, I think they're going to be doing more regional booking as well. So there's going to be more opportunities for local acts or especially local openers. And I mean, the space is beautiful. I got to go there a couple of times after it opened as well as sort of watch the process of them building it out. And it's similar to the Hamilton only in the sense that it is just like beautifully designed. But the vibe there I think is very modern, very sort of sleek. It's it's a beautiful space and it sounds amazing.
I bet. I mean, the Hamilton sounds amazing. So if those people are putting together another venue, it definitely would sound great. Absolutely. Yeah. And so now, and contrast that with you're now at Wolf Trap. So for the folks who have never been out to Wolf Trap, what you said there's multiple venues. Talk a little bit about the multiple things going on at Wolf Trap.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's also sort of seasonally based. Most people when they think of Wolf Trap, they're thinking of the Feline Center, or a lot of people are thinking of the Feline Center, which is a large venue that has the outdoor lawn component as well as the...
It's a big amphitheater.
It's a big amphitheater, basically. Yeah. And that's primarily, during the summer when weather permits people to be outside.
Sure.
They also have the Barns, which is a slightly smaller venue that's just down the road from where the Feline Center is. And again...
Is it actual barns? Like, are there tables and chairs? Is it a standing only? What's it like?
Well, it is. They're doing some renovations right now, so I'm not 100% sure. And I've only been there for a week, so I don't know. But I think the general structure in place. It's. I think most of the renovations are, around like equipment and stuff like that. But they've preserved.
Awesome.
I mean, it is an old barn that is beautiful as well.
Nice. Okay. So it's that vintage kind of feel, but
exactly.
I have to check out the Barns. And then there was another.
Yeah, and then there's also the Children's Theater in the Woods, which is located sort of near the Feline Center, just down the road from that, and that's an outdoor. That's something that during the summer they'll do programming for like children's shows. So it's a great thing to bring your kids, and especially like, you know, people that are interested in music or kids that are interested in music and you want to sort of get them involved or introduced to it, it's a great opportunity for a live performance.
Definitely is. And when you're marketing these things, then when you're doing marketing and promo for this, or like even for the Soundry or the Hamilton, talk a little bit more about what that means. Are you like looking at sponsored Facebook ads, or are you sending out press releases, or say a little bit more about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, especially, I mean, when I was at the Hamilton and Soundry, it was a marketing team of one. It was just me. So I was sort of doing all of the above. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal of the marketer is to sell tickets.
Sure.
But basically, I mean, the way that the concert business is structured, you know, the people that are putting on the shows, the venues or the promoters, often are inheriting a lot of risk. And even, you know, you can think something's a slam dunk, but you never really know.
Sure.
And I view the job of the marketer as trying to mitigate that risk as much as possible by getting butts and seats through marketing and advertising, not just relying on the strength of the band itself, because ideally you could book a show and not have to spend a dime on advertising and then everyone will come.
God,
but that's not always the case.
Yeah, I know. No, definitely not.
I view it as it's trying to get the message in front of people so that they know what's happening in the area, you know, through any medium that's available, whether it's, you know, flyers and posters or Facebook ads or radio spots, whatever it is.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about, my favorite question that I always love to ask is, if you could offer one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, man. I think that this is going to sound a little cheesy, but I think that when it comes to business, the golden rule is important. I think that you treat people the way that you would want to be treated. As an example, for me, I remember when I was trying to get my first internships and jobs, how rough it was to not get a response to emails and just to be left sort of unknown, uncertain, left hanging. So I sort of make answering emails one of my higher priority items, and I've gotten comments from whether it's radio and print reps or artist management or different people that we've worked with saying how much they appreciate how timely and responsive I am with email. But that's something that most people think of, like email as a bottom of the totem pole type thing. It's, you know, if you have time, get to it. But those little things add up, and that's how people form impressions of you. So think about, you know, if you would be ticked off because someone didn't respond to your email, don't treat other people that way, you know?
Right, absolutely. And now, one more time, if they want to follow the things, I guess you're at Wolf Trap now, so if they want to find you online and the things that are happening at Wolf Trap, where do they go for that now?
Yeah, you're going to go to wolftrap.org.
Wolftrap.org. That is where all the magic's happening, and all that promo that's happening is courtesy of Keith. So it will be courtesy of Keith here.